I want to see a child in every public school in America who is trained as a witness for Jesus Christ.
When you send that child off to school today, you're sending them into a pagan society.
And the studies are showing that there's virtually no discernible difference between the church and the world. At what point is Southern Baptists going to rise up and say, enough is enough?
Whatever we once were, we are no longer a Christian nation.
We've got to do something different. The schools are failing.
And I would go to 6 or 7 days a week, not just Monday through Friday.
You're not going to be painting, okay? You're going to be writing down whatever comes to your mind when you hear the word gay and when you hear the word lesbian.
So nothing's right or wrong
There's
in
no
this
right
either?
That's right.
They are stealing our children. But because they are leaving the body of the child with us, we don't even know it's happening.
If I had my way, government education would be brought to a halt.
Trying to fix public education is like trying to teach a pig how to dance. You get dirty and the pig gets mad.
Turning your children over to total strangers and having those strangers work on your child's mind, it's a mad idea.
Public schools have become a criminal enterprise.
Parents are willing to admit that there are these problems and yet believe that their children will somehow escape. They won't.
And it may have taken a school shooting to wake us up, to see the danger, but that's a very small danger compared to all the other things that go on that can destroy our children.
A teacher is in trouble for bringing a religion into his classroom, but should he lose his job?
When we go into a public school, we have to leave God at the door. It just came to the point where I couldn't do that anymore.
Jesus said, build your house upon the rock, but the foolish man refused the words of Christ, would not build their education systems on the fear of God, on the words of Christ.
Everything exists to proclaim the glory of God. And the one place where we send our kids 7 hours a day is a place where God's name can't be mentioned. It's not indoctrination, it's insanity.
And I'm going to say it again. When you send your child off, I'm going to say it again. When you send your child off to that institution, right, to be trained up and educated, your child knows mommy and daddy loves me. Mommy and daddy wants nothing but the best for me. And then when you go and you start learning about how your great grandpa was an ape, and then you start learning about how his great grandpa was pond scum, and you take this new information that you've just been taught, you take it home and you say, did you know that great grandpa was a monkey? Did you know that originally we came from pond scum? And then the mommy sits you down and says, hey, that's not true. That's a lie. We were created. We have a creator. We didn't just evolve. And you say, huh. All right, well, that's what they were teaching me there. You know, the place that you sent me to learn, that's what they taught me. Oh, well, a couple weeks later, you're going to come home and you're going to say, hey, did you know? Hey, guess what we learned today, guys? Did you know that Islam is a peaceful, loving religion? And that it's okay to do Buddhist chants, to meditate and to channel your energy. And then Dad says, hold on, wait a minute. Wait a minute, son. Come here, let me talk to you. Says there's only one true religion. That's the way. That's Christianity. There's only one true religion, son. Now you're like, huh, wow. Okay. Then about a month later, you can't wait. You just can't wait to share what you've learned now. So you figure you're going to wait for the big barbecue Sunday afternoon, Sunday after church, when you're all gathered in the backyard and the deacons there and the pastors there and the youth club is there and all auntie is there and grandmom's there and yeah, the whole family, right? And so now you're ready to make this great announcement because you've learned something more in school. And you say, hey, everybody, guess what? Don't call me Joe no more. I am now gender fluid. And then mommy and daddy take you to the side and say, no, Joey. You're a boy. God created you a boy. You can't be anything else other than a boy, or you'd be calling God a liar. So no, you can't be a girl. You can't be gender fluid. And now little Joey walks away looking at mommy and daddy like they're hypocrites. Why would they send me here to receive this education? Why would they send me here for 7 hours a day? Why? If it's all wrong, why would they send me here? I think my teacher was right, you know. Mommy and daddy, they're hypocrites. Wow. So I guess we need to figure out what we're supposed to do, right? I want to look at identity politics today. Why? Because identity politics normalizes pedophilia. It absolutely does. And if you don't know what identity politics is, it's sacrificing your children to the cultural revolution. Sacrificing your children to the enemy. See, the media shot back at public disgust with the Netflix show Cuties. And you know how they did it? With sneers about QAnon. Imagine that. Dismissing objections to Cuties, to a movie sexualizing young girls that would have been illegal to film in this country. Dismissing it as a right-wing conspiracy. And that sums up a poisoned marketplace of ideas in which nothing is so unacceptable that it can't be normalized by associating it with the other side. Not even pedophilia. See, the normalization of pedophilia is usually accompanied by references to QAnon or some other conspiracy, right? As if only conspiracy theorists could possibly object to the sexual exploitation and abuse of children. The release of Cuties comes as California, where Netflix's headquarters and that of the entertainment and tech industry that it intersects is located, turned SB 145 into law. What is SB 145? See, unlike a lot of California bills, which have dramatic names, SB 145 carries a bland tag, sex offenders registration. SB 145 curtly states, this bill would exempt from mandatory registration under the Act a person convicted of certain offenses involving minors if the person is not more than 10 years older than the minor. So in California, a 24-year-old sexually abusing a 14-year-old would qualify as the man not having to, or the woman not having to register as a sex offender if they're caught. See, this bill has no application to anyone under the age of 14, says Senator Weiner. Count your blessings. The bill, introduced by Senator Scott Weiner, who represents San Francisco in the state Senate, was passed by its Democratic majority, while the media sympathetically presented it as fighting anti-gay discrimination, and Weiner as being targeted by QAnon harassment. It's not just fictional pedophilia that can be normalized through ideological tribalism. See, this SB 145 passed the California State Senate by 41 to 25. And Governor Newsom, of course, signed it into law, even while massive wildfires were turning the skies of San Francisco an ominous red. Even while the state was being burned down by wildfires, they couldn't wait to push through a bill that would allow 24-year-old adults to engage or molest or even rape a 14-year-old child. And they wouldn't have to register as a sex offender if they were even caught. Modern leftists, like members of any fundamentalist faith, are capable of seeing a message in a firestorm, but only the one that accords with their theology, in which sexually abusing children is a step forward for civil rights, while failing to set up enough solar panels is a grave sin. To quote House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Mother Earth is angry. Mother Earth is angry. She's telling us, whether she's telling us with hurricanes on the Gulf, fires in the West, whatever it is, that climate crisis is real and has an impact. Democrats can hear Mother Earth, but they can't hear the cries of abused children. Isn't that something? I'm glad that I'm not a Democrat, that I'm not even a Republican, that I'm a man of God Almighty. And so I'm liberal on some issues and I'm conservative on others, but I have no problem distinguishing children being sacrificed and sexualized as wrong. See, normalizing pedophilia is the inevitable outcome of the leftist shift from individual rights to identity politics. Children are only protected from abuse by the vestiges of a criminal justice system that is being dismantled by leftists because it oppresses those groups who disproportionately engage in criminal behavior. In a worldview in which criminals are victims and victims are criminals, the rights of pedophiles are more morally compelling than their victims. Children are not an oppressed group, and their rights are often sacrificed to the demands of identity politics, whether it's Somali Muslims engaging in female genital mutilation in Minnesota, a bill tackling the question was opposed by Ilhan Omar, or chemically castrating young boys to make them identify as girls, there are always collective issues of identity politics, the assertion of some oppressed groups' rights that are more important than the bodies and the lives of children. When ideas are more compelling than people are sacrificed to ideas. And a society that is increasingly uninterested in the old family structures is sacrificing children to its ideas. Modern Molochs have many ideas for saving the world by passing children through the flames. Environmentalists insist that people shouldn't have children to save the planet. Feminists argue that people should abort children for gender equality. Activists who claim that there is no gender are tinkering with children to demonstrate their ideas. Critical race theorists are indoctrinating children with their poisonously racist ideas in kindergarten. So why not throw in a little pedophilia? Two parallel moral systems are inhabiting the same country. The vice of one is the virtue of the other. And only one of those moral systems is shocked and horrified by the abuse of children. After the United States attempted to extradite filmmaker Roman Polanski for drugging and raping a 13-year-old girl, an army of famous celebrities, Hollywood of course, signed a free Roman Polanski petition. The list included everyone from Martin Scorsese, Meryl Streep, Emma Thompson, Natalie Portman, Harrison Ford, and obviously Harvey Weinstein, with the sexual predator calling Polanski's rape a so-called crime. In Roman Polanski case, is it Hollywood versus Middle America? The LA Times asked. See, that's the cuties situation again. And by the way, I'm going to say this. If you have and use Netflix after all of the child pedophilia they've promoted in the past, and after the cuties situation, then you are the problem. You're not just a part of it. You are a problem. You're a problem and you're the problem. So if you still have Netflix, you are the problem. Hollywood has a way of winning these fights. Roman Polanski may have successfully avoided extradition from France to America, but Harvey Weinstein has spent the better part of the year fighting extradition from New York to LA. But due to the pandemic, the extradition hearing has been delayed until December. By the time Harvey gets shipped over to Los Angeles, California Democrats may find a way to change the law to make it more accommodating toward these so-called crimes. Culture is more compelling than law. Culture is more compelling than law. It's why Harvey Weinstein was able to get away with it for so long. Rape might be on the books as a crime, but in an environment in which no one thinks it's a crime, no one will report it, and hardly anyone will enforce the laws if they do. The entertainment industry, Hollywood, is at least as abusive towards children as it is to women. See, Netflix, with a market cap in the neighborhood of $200 billion and 200 million subscribers, has far more power than any mere studio. And Cuties is a test of that power in the same way that Harvey Weinstein tested his power. See, after a certain number, money becomes meaningless. The degeneracy of absolute power comes from powerful men pushing their appetites to the limits. There's no place where the ruling elite push their power to the limit as much as California. See, the average person, even perhaps the average Netflix subscriber, may be disgusted by cuties, but a brief history of the entertainment industry and the nation's morals shows that Americans have been adapting their tastes and tolerances to those of their entertainers for 70 years. It's not the other way around. Complaints like "shut up and sing" or "don't preach to us" are hollow protests when pitted against the power of someone like Netflix CEO Reed Hastings or Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos. We live in Hollywood's world where marriage, family, and religion are on the decline. Mere law, as California showed us, won't stop the normalization of pedophilia. And public revulsion won't stop it either. Because there's a whole lot of people that are disgusted by cuties, but still have Netflix. Is there reason to think that the same cultural machine that convinced the majority of the country to support men showering with young girls will fail for the first time? In 2016, a majority of Americans opposed the idea. By 2017, a slim majority supported it, and by 2019, a majority were in favor of a law that would force transgender bathroom use. See, that's the rate of speed at which these battles are fought and lost these days. The Bostock decision, in which Gorsuch and Roberts joined the leftists in inverting the meaning of sex, was inevitable if you were paying attention to the polling, not in rural Kansas, but in New York, D.C., and San Francisco, and the major cities that act as incubators for the ruling class. And if you want conservative judges, try looking in rural Arkansas, not the Ivy League. How fast can actual pedophilia be normalized? We may all find out sooner than we think. America is undergoing a catastrophic clash between two incompatible moral systems, one of which, as Yeats wrote, lacks conviction, while the other is full of passionate intensity. Both moral systems are highly detailed ways of explaining the world and the place of human beings in it. But only one of them believes that what we do as individuals, apart from the group, matters. Only one of those systems finds value in the existence of a child. Not as a prop for an idea, but as a person. A religion with a personal God makes personal morality innate and inescapable, but the secular religion of the wokes has no God, no personal morality, and no sins except the social kind. A religion that encompasses the universe can be localized in the confines of the human soul, but the social religion of leftists is enmeshed with charts and graphs about the social status of all. Speaking of charts and graphs, we're going to look at a chart in a little while. Their messianism of the collective liberation of all has no room for individual rights or morals. Decadence is not a sin, it's revolutionary. Liberation requires the destruction of the old mores, and even when practiced on a child, sweeps away the old repressive order with its false ideas about sexual morality and replaces it with the creative destruction of the endless revolution. That's why prominent figures in the German, French, and British left openly endorsed pedophilia in the 70s, only to have the awkward fact swept under the rug afterwards. The left is not a mere ideology. The left is not a mere ideology. It is a belief system with its supernatural elements like Mother Nature, with redemption, damnation, and a crusade, whose value system is being perpetuated through government institutions, schools, and universities, and through the entertainment industry that has become the common culture of a country whose people have little in common. It's not enough to cancel Netflix, to turn off the NFL, or skip the latest movie. We must restore the soul of a nation, its values, purpose, and meaning that popular culture displaced or replaced. Or we will find out what's coming up next is a thing worse than we could ever have imagined. Why are we sexualizing children? Well, one, why are you sending your children to public school? Oh, because you need a babysitter. 7 hours a day. Psh. Don't get any better than that. Free babysitters as you're sacrificing your children. You're sacrificing your children to the government. Plain and simple. See, they're teaching them comprehensive sex education. And I want to go to an article from 2013, I believe. 2013. That's not the one. From 2013. Let's see, a brief history. Let's look at a brief history of sex ed, how we reach today's madness. 2013. Once upon a time, sex education was a simple biology lesson. And before I go further, please hear me. I don't condone public schools. I don't condone sex education the way it was in public schools as opposed to the way it is. But let's look at an article from 2013 that is going to give us a brief history of where comprehensive sex education comes from. Students learned the facts of life, and with those facts, that sex is a part of something bigger called marriage. Teachers explained that this was the moral and healthy way to live. Gone are those days too, by the way. Not that it made them any more real or righteous, right? In those days, people understood that men and women are different and that their union is unique, unlike any other relationship. It went without saying that boys grew up to become men and girls women. There were only 2 sexually transmitted diseases. There were only 2 STDs, and having one of them was a serious matter. Certain behaviors were not normal. Individuals who practiced them needed help, and a child's innocence was precious. But things have changed. Now we have comprehensive sexuality education. It includes discussion of identity, gender, reproductive rights, and discrimination. Children learn that they're sexual from birth and that the proper time for sexual activity is when they feel ready. They're taught that they have rights to pleasure, birth control, and abortion. The terms husband and wife aren't used. The union of man and woman is one of several options. And morality? Well, that's judging, and judging is not allowed. You won't find much biology in sexuality education, but there's voluminous information on the varieties of sexual expression, the pros and cons of different contraceptives and abortions, and the harms of gender stereotype. Gender itself is a complicated matter. A boy might turn into a man, a woman, or something else. A girl might feel she was born in the wrong body and want her breasts removed, and this is all normal. At least that's what they're teaching your children and your grandchildren. There are over 24 STDs now. An infection with one of these love bugs is considered by some to be a part of growing up. A doctor declares on YouTube, expect to have HPV, which is the human papillomavirus, once you become sexually intimate. He says all of us get it. But sexual and intimate, right? Together as one. And they're not the same. Sex is not intimacy, and intimacy is not sex, and sex is not another level of intimacy. Sex is sex, and intimacy is intimacy. And childhood innocence? Forget it. Material created for children makes most adults uncomfortable. On websites recommended to students, nothing is taboo. Sadomasochism, polyamory, and what were once called deviant behaviors, they're all good now. When I first discovered this, I was astonished. What do these bizarre behaviors have to do with health, I wondered. How can responsible adults allow this? How can they fund this? As a physician and a parent, it really bothered the writer of this article. She wanted to understand, where did this come from? How did we reach this madness? So she looked into the history of sexual education. She ended up writing a book called You're Teaching My Child What? Modern sex ed began in the 60s, based on Alfred Kinsey's model of human sexuality. Thanks to the brilliant and courageous work of Dr. Judith Reisman, amen, we now know that Kinsey was both a fraud and a deeply disturbed individual. And actually, we now know that Alfred Kinsey was a mad scientist pedophile. You know, I promised you a graph, right? Let's look at one of Alfred Kinsey's graphs. He has a graph called Table 34. Look at Table 34. It talks about, this is evidence of criminal acts is what it is. This table is from Alfred Kinsey's book, from his own scientific research. It details sexual experiments involving between 317 and 1,746 male children from 5 months old to 14 years old. Yeah, you heard me right. Can you imagine that the man who conducted and promoted sex with children, 5-month-old infants, that the man that did this and documented it is where your comprehensive sex education that's being taught to your children and your grandchildren in the public school system, in the government school system, is where it came from. Can you imagine? Adult stimulation, whether oral or manual, of children's genitals was and remains illegal, by the way. But they still allowed this test to be completed. They still allowed this to become the, as they call it, the sexual revolution. You know, and you know what? I'm going to show y'all a video. And you know what? I was going to say, well, hey, guys, it might be a little much. But guess what? I hope it is a little much. Because guess what? If kids can see it in school, then why can't adults see it right now? Why not?
American Life League report. When most people think of Planned Parenthood, they think of the babies it kills through abortion, or the mountains of birth control it dispenses. But another side to Planned Parenthood, which should be equally considered, is its obsession with sex. Sex toys, sex contests, sex balloons, penis-shaped balloons, penis cupcakes, vagina macaroons, vagina fruit roll-ups, giant vagina costumes. All of these things play a central role in Planned Parenthood's community activities. But what's truly shocking is how these perverts are allowed unfettered access to our children while raking in government cash to sell them unrestrained sex. Oh, Planned Parenthood will claim that what they teach kids is scientific and age-appropriate. But the fact of the matter is that age-appropriate is a standard concocted by Planned Parenthood itself so that it can sell pornography to kids as science. Why would they do this? Just as the goal of a drug dealer is to make drug addicts, Planned Parenthood's goal is to make sex addicts, and they follow the same business model. For instance, Planned Parenthood's gateway drug is masturbation. One of its primary resources for 10-year-olds is a book called It's Perfectly Normal, and it sells masturbation to kids with graphic images of naked boys and girls masturbating, men and women having sex, and even things like this, and this, and this. If a dirty old man showed these things to a 10-year-old kid in a park, he'd be arrested. But when Planned Parenthood shows them to kids in a classroom, it gets government money. But that's just the start. Once they get to high school, right about the time that they hit puberty, Planned Parenthood tells vulnerable teens stimulating and intimate things about sex. Just look at what its website for teens says. The link to Our Bodies takes teens to a page that provides graphic displays of genitals and tells them about how pleasurable the clitoris is and how pleasurable breasts are to touch and massage. This section on sex and masturbation encourages boys and girls to masturbate and tries to dispel any embarrassment or hesitation in trying it. It also describes orgasms and encourages anal sex and oral sex. This section, titled LGBTQ, tells young teens that all sexual orientations are perfectly normal. The page on homosexuality, titled Coming Out, displays a teenage boy in an intimate pose with what appears to be an adult man. This section explains how to have gay sex using a condom, dental dam, and even plastic wrap. And for their viewing pleasure, Planned Parenthood's got a few things for teens to watch.
There's a penis on my body. Awesome!
Being gay is a little like being left-handed.
Any protection?
Yeah, of course.
Amen.
Now this is a clitoral hood. See it?
Happy rap, better ring a rang dong. This is how the penis and vagina get along.
Go penis, go penis.
Twinkie trumpet gherkin, Captain Winky schlong.
Time to go inside and find out.
Inside the vagina?
Calm down, Pete. You're leaking again.
It's bad enough that Planned Parenthood is conditioning children to engage in sexual activity with the kind of stuff that we've just shown you. But Planned Parenthood of Upper Hudson's youth program, which includes children as young as 13, requires participants to be exposed to sexual deviancy on parade. Literally. Planned Parenthood of Upper Hudson's application form for the STARS program for high school kids states that students as young as 13 are required to attend Capitol Pride. But this isn't just Planned Parenthood of Upper Hudson. As shown in this memo from 1969, Planned Parenthood's national goal is to restructure the family and encourage increased homosexuality as a sick form of population control. And that's why they expose our kids to stuff like this. Is it any wonder that 1 in 4 teenage girls has an STD? All this exposure to sex takes place before graduation from high school. When these kids go to college, they'll be bombarded with sex-themed parties put on by Planned Parenthood Vox groups. Here's a brief look at some of the different ways Planned Parenthood spills its pornographic material to undergrads. Like this poster of a penis monster attacking a naked girl in a condom bubble. Is this image from a Vox party something that Planned Parenthood considers medically accurate? Here's Planned Parenthood doing its part in reducing men and women to sex objects. A party with no pants and free safe sex kits? That just screams date rape. Maybe a Planned Parenthood sex workshop about pleasure, desire, and orgasms is more age appropriate. At least your sons and daughters can enjoy the vulva puppet show and leave with a free sex toy. What Planned Parenthood education booth would be complete without a fisting kit for homosexual college and teenage students? But hey, America can sleep well knowing that its tax money is being put to good use, right? This is what Planned Parenthood is all about. Get the kids addicted to sex so it can sell them birth control. When teens catch a sexually transmitted disease, it sells them testing services. And when a young girl gets pregnant, it sells her an abortion. This isn't education, it's indoctrination intended to drum up Planned Parenthood's abortion business. Help us break the cycle. Go to American Life League's Action Center to find out what you can do to stop the madness. For American Life League.
This is definitely an attack. It will affect your child rearing. It will affect your education system.
This is instructions for the teacher in the classroom to ask her or his students, how do people express their sexual feelings? What is abstinence? And here are some answers. Oral sex, masturbation, anal sex, massage, holding hands, touching each other's genitals, saying, I like you. And what they're doing is equating all these things. Saying, I like you is equal to anal sex.
It is pornography. Men, especially on the house floor, did not want to look at. We couldn't show this on the television news, but yet we want our 4th grade children to be looking at this book.
In the name of sexuality education, children are seeing obscene materials that have been ruled by Congress and by the Supreme Court impossible to show to children.
An online CSE program for African youth called The World Starts With Me tells children that sexuality includes oral sex and masturbation. It then tells them it's their own choice if they want to lose their virginity. It shows children pictures of naked girls and boys in various stages of development, and then asks them to point out differences in their private parts. Parents likely will never know, as it is all done online away from home.
They have elementary students as young as 9 years old. Then they teach them how to wear a condom. And they have this plastic genitalia, and they even have young girls. They're teaching them how to put a condom on a male genitalia and boys how to put a condom on a women's genitalia without the knowledge and consent of the parents.
They're giving them handouts, negotiating sexual encounters with other students. For example, there are statements like this: can I take your shirt off? It makes me hot when you touch me here. Is it okay if I take my pants off?
Where we in Latin America, we still have a lot of poverty. We have communities that don't have fresh water, that don't have electricity. Focus is completely shifted from basic needs. They get comprehensive sexual education without the consent of parents, taking and deconstructing the family.
My brother Luigi and I had an opportunity to go to the United Nations and give a speech on the UN floor. I told them how Planned Parenthood was passing out a booklet for HIV positive youth at the United Nations called Healthy, Happy, and Hot. This is for the kids who have AIDS. It teaches about sexual pleasure through masturbation with same-sex partners and even if you are drunk.
This pamphlet called Healthy, Happy, and Hot tells young people that you have the right not to disclose your HIV status to a sexual partner if you're not comfortable. It also tells young people that are HIV positive that If they decide with their partner not to wear a condom, that's their decision.
The World Health Organization standards for sexuality education in Europe actually suggest that children ages 0 to 4 should be given information about masturbation and given the right to explore their gender identity. For ages 4 to 6, children should be taught about same-sex relationships and respect for different norms regarding sexuality.
The interests of organizations like UNFPA and IPPF is to get parents out of the picture and to radicalize and sexualize children.
UNFPA has tried to convince my country to change our positions on issues such as reproductive rights and comprehensive sexuality education. Madam Chair, does the UNFPA think it can do this because Nauru is the smallest member states of the United Nations?
The Nigerian government was actually told by the Western countries that if they do not give in, that they would be denied foreign aid.
On page 89 of a UNICEF-published Sexual and Reproductive Health Manual, UNICEF listed situations in which one can obtain sexual pleasure that included sexual responses directed towards inanimate objects, animals, minors, and non-consenting persons.
In the context of the Sustainable Development Goals that determines the agenda for the next 15 years, the voice is very, very biased. It's just International Planned Parenthood Federation and their affiliates have a direct influence on the outcome documents, on what is established, what is negotiated at the UN.
Some of the objectives of the UNESCO Sexuality Education Guidelines include teaching children at age 9 about sexual stimulation and the definition and function of orgasm, and at age 15, that both men and women can receive sexual pleasure with a partner of the same or opposite sex. The It's All One curriculum, also promoted by International Planned Parenthood, reveals the multiple manipulative tactics used to indoctrinate and sexualize children through CSE. Like other CSE programs, It's All One claims, among other things, to be evidence-based, comprehensive, human rights, gender-sensitive, and culturally appropriate education that will increase young people's responsible decision-making, to reduce adolescent rates of pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, including HIV. It's All One, however, like most CSE programs, is really just cleverly disguised abortion rights, sexual pleasure education, masquerading as human rights, gender, and sexual and reproductive health education. It aggressively promotes abortion. With over 112 references to abortion, It's All One has an obsessive focus on sexual pleasure, mentioning sexual pleasure 62 times. It promotes multiple sex acts and instructs children on how to stimulate themselves or their partner to orgasm. To explore their readiness, children fill out a worksheet that infers children are ready to have sex when you are feeling sexually attracted to the other person, and when you're feeling comfortable about telling the other person what feels good sexually. It teaches that human rights encompass sexual rights, including alleged rights to all persons to sexual expression and the right to seek sexual pleasure. Hooking children on sex is a multi-billion-dollar business for Planned Parenthood and other similar organizations. This is because children, or prospects, once sexualized, become Planned Parenthood customers dependent upon their services. Comprehensive sexuality education programs are disguised under many names. They may be called comprehensive sex or sexual education, education on human sexuality, reproductive health education, information on sexual and reproductive health, family life education, teen pregnancy prevention, rape prevention, anti-bullying programs, HIV/AIDS prevention, and sometimes even abstinence or abstinence plus education. CSE programs usually falsely claim to be age-appropriate, evidence-based, healthy sexuality education that will prevent teen pregnancy, sexual abuse, STDs, and HIV.
One of the handouts that concerns me the most is called the Genderbread Person. They teach that gender is a spectrum, that you can choose to be whatever you want. You could be all female one day and the next day feel like you're neither female or male.
Frankly, it's confusing. It's mental molestation. We're confusing these kids as to
what they are. From a medical perspective, when sexual freedom is the priority, then sexual health is going to suffer.
There are laws in Oregon where children as young as 15 can get taxpayer-funded sex changes without parental consent. You can't have an aspirin at school without parental consent. However, a student could make these life-altering, permanent decisions without their parental knowledge or consent.
Sexual rights, sexual education movements began with Dr. Alfred C. Kinsey. Kinsey actually had pedophiles measure with a stopwatch how many children could achieve what he called orgasms within a 24-hour period. Today, comprehensive sexuality education is based on this philosophy that children are sexual from birth, created by Kinsey.
We've got to stop it. We've got to use everything at our disposal. We have to stand together to stop this attack against our children.
And they have all this funding and this organization, but we know that if we stand together, we can do something for the family, for the children.
We stopped the Kinsey sexuality education program in Croatia.
It is time for parents to say, no, my family is mine. My wife is mine. I am hers. Our children are ours.
Band together and find ways to stop it from entering your country.
Men have to rise up, defend their family. On matters sexual, the fathers have got to stand up. Say, you have no place talking sexuality to my children. We resist it, even with our lives, because that's what life is all about.
It's happening on our watch. If we don't do something about it, it is all of us that carry that guilt.
To learn more and to sign the petition to stop comprehensive sexuality education, go to stopcsc.org. Together, we can and will protect the world's children.
I don't know anybody that wants their child to be sexualized and sacrificed and used and abused. But yet, why is it so difficult to make them understand that if they put them on that little yellow school bus to hell, that's exactly what they're going to put their child through, is hell? I don't know. Tomorrow we're going to talk about a new House bill in Ohio. A new House bill in Ohio that is changing sexuality and science. Changing science. Really. Female, quote unquote, sex will now include confused males. So tomorrow morning, we're going to have Linda Harvey from Mission America, J.R. Harrison, our very own, from the Natural Family Foundation, and also Dr. Pastor Mike Spalding of Soaring Eagle Radio and Dr. Mike Live. So, and we're going to talk about this new bill, House Bill 369, the so-called Ohio Fairness Act. We're going to talk about it because these are the bills that are being passed in even your own state. A lot of times people don't even know about them. But when you do know about it, or you have a means to find out about it, you got to. And you got to stand up and speak out about it. So, please get informed, and then get involved. I love you guys. Lord willing, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Hey, you know what? Tonight is Dry Bones. I have Dave Warren of Forerunners of America. You don't want to miss tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our website or on our YouTube channel. Lord willing, I'll see y'all there. And peace. I love you guys. Peace.